Hey viewers, today we will be taking a look at the age-old question, does God exist? Obviously, it's really easy to just say yes or no and just make up some random example to prove that. We're not going to do that though. We are going to really look at the question first before we answer it. Two parts of the question are interesting to look at. First of all, what do we mean by God? And second, what do we mean by exist? At first glance, it seems obvious what we mean by both of those things, but don't be fooled. Most people who answer this question only look at the Christian God, even though that is hardly the only deity around. The Christian God has existed for a mere 2000 years, while other cultures, such as the Egyptians, a whopping 2500 years earlier, already had gods they worshipped. So when we look at the question, does God exist? Just looking at the Christian representation of God doesn't seem to cut it. So instead we will broaden our scope to gods in general, since that seems the most logical thing to do. We will continue on this later in this video. The second part of the question then. What constitutes existence? Looking in the dictionary, we find existence to mean the fact or state of living or having objective reality. Translating that in normal words, existing doesn't mean the same as being alive. To give an example of this, the sun exists, but it's definitely not alive. The way we know the sun is real is because we can measure its effects on us. We can see the light, feel the warmth. We have, however, only a theory of what the sun is. We've never actually been there. Maybe this goes a little bit far for some of you, but bear with me here. In short, existence is more tricky than just being visible or alive. We can just define it as something exists if it affects something else. Going back to what we saw earlier, God shouldn't just refer to the Christian God, but rather to a general deity. The question still remains, then, what is a God? Gods can be split into two basic groups. In one group, gods are either good or bad and they fight each other for supremacy. These gods were invented to deal with the duality of everything. They're supposed to teach moral lessons and make people realize the difference between good and bad, and basically pick a side. In the other group, gods are part of nature. These gods have certain abilities to make things happen in nature. An example of this is the Egyptian god Ra, who represents the sun. Ra was the one who made the sun come up in the morning and let it set at night. Although an argument can be made that the following is true for both types of God, I will continue with the second group. Gods of this kind exist to explain things that could not be explained. We can say that gods are a form of crude explanation of how the universe really works. But does that mean that they don't exist? Looking at societies all over the world, but mostly in the past, we see that every civilization has one or more god, mostly to explain things like the sun and nature. Science has come so far, however, that we think we no longer need them. So we pretend that the whole concept of attributing power to an unknown being is ridiculous. In science, however, this is done all the time. It is the basis of making a hypothesis. We attribute a certain power to something and then try to find out whether we're right. Historically speaking, however, we are rarely right. Most theories that were proven in the past have been proven to be wrong in later years. So, yeah, we still have gods in our society, we just don't know they're there. A secondary proof for the existence of God then. Earlier in this video I defined existence as follows. Something exists if it affects something else. Many scientific studies show that believing in a deity results in a positive effect on people, both mentally and physically, which means that there is a measurable effect of the deity's presence. If God didn't exist, which means if nobody ever thought a God might exist, this positive effect would have been absent. Therefore, God can be found in the notion of God. The concept of God is God. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter whether you believe in a material being that is all-powerful, or that you believe in a positive energy that flows through the universe, or even that you believe in the acquisition of knowledge through scientific experimentation. God exists, and I can prove it. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you next time.